Death Battle 2024 is wrapped up and we have 4 new Death Battle casts to talk about. We get some fun, familiar faces that we haven't seen for a while, and we also get Sam back in the debating seat. So without further ado, let's begin my ranking with... Number 4, Ghostface vs. Kevin McAllister. Poor Galaxy Video Max, man, he got done so dirty here. The concept of this matchup is fine, but it falls apart really quickly when you realize how Kevin beats the people he's up against. He outsmarts idiots, essentially. Kevin's contraptions are complex, in a way, and he does pose a threat to people who aren't really that smart. But the Ghostfaces aren't idiots and probably would just kill Kevin really easily. Now, there have been multiple versions of Ghostface throughout the movies with multiple people taking up the mantle, but most of the time there are 2 Ghostfaces at any given moment. If these 2 showed up at Kevin's house, Kevin would already be dead. Now, I do like the fact that the Ghostfaces typically like to let people know they are coming, so it would give Kevin a reason to start booby-trapping his house. And certain things that Kevin does in the movies, like throwing cinder blocks on people's heads, would definitely kill the Ghostfaces. But he's just not fast or smart enough to pull that off. Like they said in the cast, sure, Kevin could probably take one Ghostface out, but all the other one would need to do is get behind Kevin and kill him with a knife. And seeing as Ghostface is extremely quiet compared to the other people Kevin has to contend with, it seems like Ghostface would have no problem killing him quite easily. Poor Galaxy Video Max though. The guy tried his hardest to debate, but this was just a debate he would never win. Oh, also, if you're curious why this is in last place, I just don't want to see a child get murdered by 2 adults easily. Next. Number 3, Saitama vs. Squirrel Girl. This was Erin's second time repping Squirrel Girl, and she handled herself really well. Now, going into this matchup, no, I don't think this is the best idea for either character, but they did convince me that there is something here in terms of what could make a good episode. Saitama is overpowered as all hell, there's no denying that, but with Squirrel Girl's more unique abilities, she does stand somewhat of a chance. I don't know if she's as powerful as Saitama, but scaling to her evil double, using the paper that Deadpool gives her, and her general Taka no Jutsu that she has would pose a problem for Saitama. Liam argued that Saitama can see and alter parts of his own story, but honestly I think the most he can do is predict. We don't actually see him alter his story at all. There was the argument of Saitama being able to contend with higher dimensional beings like us in the human world, but like Erin said, the higher dimension that's shown exists inside of Saitama's universe, so it is somewhat limited. That's a very good catch on her end though. Squirrel Girl can contend with characters like Galactus and has more general win cons. So honestly, I think this goes to Squirrel Girl. But I will say, debate-wise, this was the best back and forth we had the whole month. Erin really knows her stuff and had an answer to almost any of Liam's arguments. And that's a hard thing to do since Liam can be such a good versus debater. I still think Squirrel Girl versus Sandy is a better matchup though. Number 2, Penguin versus Kingpin. And people say there aren't any good Marvel versus DC matchups left. Liam and Sam made this matchup seem really fun, even though Liam did most of the heavy lifting. To be fair, Penguin did need a lot of explanation for how he would beat the Kingpin. But that's because Kingpin is, well, Kingpin. There wasn't any wow moments for anything on Kingpin's side other than him having a disintegration ray. They could have covered the vast amount of guns and weapons the Kingpin and his organization have access to, but they mostly stuck with the cane. The Penguin obviously isn't as strong as Kingpin, but he has a variety of canes that let him fly, shoot bullets and missiles, poison enemies, and even make them sneeze. I don't think they would give Penguin his transformation since there is context to how those abilities work, but I do think he should be given his Penguin army since it's part of his standard arsenal. I think Penguin takes this. He's most likely faster, has better weaponry, and is even quite a competent hand-to-hand fighter. I guess once you get knocked around by Batman a few times, you really just need to learn how to defend yourself. Sam didn't do much arguing on his side, but Liam did argue his points really well. I think Liam was robbed of the victory he so rightly deserves. Now, let's move on to my number 1 cast matchup, which probably would be obvious if you knew me, is number 1. Monokuma vs. Coro Sensei. This matchup is one of my most wanted. I love Danganronpa. Mostly. And I love Assassination Classroom. So seeing these 2 juxtaposing characters face each other would be insane. Monokuma is someone who uses killing as a way to break people down. And Koro Sensei is someone that uses killing to build people up and give direction to those that society has given up on. Now, these 2 don't typically kill people themselves. They'd rather teach their students how to kill and incentivize them to do so. These 2 would canonically hate each other, so of course it would be great to see them fight. As for the debate though, I agree with the imaginary axis on this one. The general consensus is that Monokuma would win, but I think that Koro Sensei takes this. I think using the Junko AI for this fight would make the most sense, but as for how the fight would go down, There's a lot that could happen. The way I imagined it is that it would be a mix of Danganronpa 1 and Ultra Despair Girls, where they have both the stronger head teacher Monokumas and the mass-produced models you see in Ultra Despair Girls. Danganronpa is hard to take feats from, since all you can really use is Danganronpa 1, Ultra Despair Girls, the anime, and some of the books. 2 of the 4 games can't be used at all for feats. Since Danganronpa 2 is a simulation, spoilers, so nothing that happens there is real, and Danganronpa V3 has questionable canonicity. Coro Sensei, even though he's outnumbered by a wide margin, has things like beams he could fire. He can rip people apart with nothing but his tentacles easily. And you would need special weapons to do major damage to him, which Monokuma just doesn't have access to. It would only be a matter of time before Koro Sensei wiped out all of the Monokumas and saved the day. Sorry, Fan Battle, I don't agree with you on this one. I love your content though. As for the debate though, oh my god, Liam, what happened to you? One thing I should mention about versus debating is that you can't just go on a wiki and assume that the information there is all you need to win a debate. Context matters a lot. Whenever I make predictions for a death battle, for an example, let's use Kratos vs. Asura. I combed through and watched all of the games myself, looked at articles about how their weapons worked in the context of their stories, looked at blogs and the wiki to see how people scaled them, and then took the feats that I believed were the most believable, and looked at how both of them fought their opponents to see if they maybe had a fighting style that would counter the other person. I didn't look at a list of powers and assume that that's all the information I needed for my prediction. That's what I think Liam did here. Liam got absolutely destroyed by the imaginary Axis, who had a majority of information for both sides and was able to downplay Liam's arguments easily. People really wanted imaginary Axis back onto the podcast, but I didn't want to see him debate Liam like this. It's just sad, man. But he's a really good debater. In any case though, this is a super thematic matchup that I would love to see on the show someday. So this month they had 2 matchups that they discussed that I'd love to see a full episode on, meaning that my rating for this month's cast is a C. Not too bad in the slightest. In any case, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. For something, I'm not sure yet. Take care.